There are moments in history when an entire people suddenly realize they've been living in a matrix. Not a technological matrix like in the movies, but a psychological matrix, the belief that they cannot do anything for themselves. On September 30th, 2022, 20 million people in Burkina Faso awoke, and when a people awaken, nothing can stop them. For decades, the world had programmed Burkina Faso to believe they were born to receive, not to give. To believe they were consumers, not producers. To believe that survival was the highest goal they could achieve. But there was a bug in this program. That bug was the underestimation of the power of the human spirit. Ibrahim Traoré discovered and exploited that bug. And now, the entire system is collapsing. This isn't just a story about a military coup. This is a story about a revolution of consciousness. It's about a small West African nation proving that dependency is not destiny, but a choice. And they have chosen a different path. To understand why what is happening in Burkina Faso is so revolutionary, we must first understand the machine that has operated for decades to keep Africa in a state of dependency. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is a business model. This machine operates on a simple formula: create dependency, then maintain it. How? First, persuade them that they are incapable of feeding themselves, that their land isn't fertile enough, that their people aren't smart enough, that their culture is backward, that they need help to survive. In Burkina Faso, this formula was perfectly applied. Before 2022, the country imported 60% of its food, even though 80% of its population was involved in agriculture. They exported raw cotton for $1 a kilogram, then imported processed cotton products for $20. They had the land, the people, the resources, but somehow always needed aid to survive. The collective psyche was programmed. We cannot live without them. Government agencies were designed to coordinate aid, not to develop capabilities. The school system taught children to dream of escaping Burkina Faso, not building it. Media outlets reported on what was lacking, not on what was possible. This was psychological warfare at a national level, and it worked perfectly, until Ibrahim Traoré appeared. He realized that the problem wasn't resource scarcity. The problem was consciousness scarcity. It wasn't that they didn't have enough to succeed. It was that they didn't believe they could succeed. And belief, as we are about to see, is everything. Ibrahim Traoré isn't just a leader. He is a philosopher of action, an architect of consciousness, a catalyst of transformation. To understand him, we must understand the philosophy he represents. At 34, when most people are still figuring out their career path, Traoré had a complete worldview about Africa's potential. His core belief is simple but revolutionary. Every people has within them everything necessary to prosper. This isn't wishful thinking. This is a practical philosophy based on historical evidence. He studied Thomas Sankara, who made Burkina Faso food self-sufficient in just 4 years during the 1980s. He studied successful development models in Asia, where countries like South Korea and Singapore transformed from poverty to prosperity in 1 generation. He analyzed why these models worked and why Africa wasn't applying them. His conclusion: the problem isn't a lack of resources or capabilities. The problem is a lack of the proper mindset and political will. Africa has been conditioned to think like a consumer market instead of a production powerhouse, to think like an aid recipient instead of a wealth creator. Traoré's methodology has 4 clear stages. First, consciousness raising, changing the narrative about Burkina Faso's capabilities, connecting with cultural pride and historical memory, creating new symbols and a new language of possibility. He didn't just say we can, but explained specifically how we can. The second stage, institutional transformation, restructuring the government to serve the people, not the donors, realigning priorities from dependency to self-reliance, building new partnerships based on equality, not charity. Every ministry was rethought to support production instead of coordinating aid. The third stage, economic revolution, focusing on production capabilities, not consumption. Developing local value chains, keeping wealth circulating within the country, transforming from a raw material exporter to a value-added producer. A simple concept with profound implications. The fourth stage, cultural renaissance. Reviving traditional knowledge systems, blending ancient wisdom with modern techniques, creating a new identity as producers and innovators, not victims and recipients, celebrating what makes Burkina Faso unique instead of apologizing for it. But there is one element in Traoré's philosophy that most analysts miss, a spiritual dimension. He understands that true transformation must happen at the level of consciousness before it can manifest at the level of material reality. He isn't just changing policies, he's changing souls. A revolution is never just about one person. It's about the moment when one person's consciousness spreads and becomes the consciousness of many. In Burkina Faso, this spread happened with incredible speed and scale. Initially, like every revolutionary idea, there was skepticism. People had heard too many promises from too many leaders. They had been disappointed too many times to easily believe. But Traoré didn't just promise. He demonstrated. Instead of grand speeches about a distant future, he focused on immediate, tangible changes. The first believers were those who had directly experienced frustration with the old system. Farmers were tired of growing cotton for foreign companies and watching profits flow out of the country. Teachers were frustrated with a curriculum not relevant to local reality. Young entrepreneurs had been told that success required foreign partnership. The tipping point came when these people started to see concrete results. Local agricultural cooperatives formed organically. Farmers experimented with traditional seeds and discovered higher yields with lower costs. Teachers incorporated local knowledge into lessons and watched students become more engaged. Entrepreneurs found local solutions to local problems and realized that community support could be more powerful than foreign investment. In the agricultural sector, the transformation was especially dramatic. Burkinabe farmers began to rediscover traditional farming techniques that colonial education had taught them to despise. Crop rotation methods passed down through generations were suddenly validated by modern agricultural science. Indigenous seed varieties proved more resistant to local climate conditions than expensive imported alternatives. Knowledge-sharing networks emerged naturally. Village elders found themselves sought after for wisdom about land management. Youth brought energy and a willingness to experiment. Women, the traditional keepers of seed knowledge, became key players in agricultural innovation. Innovation happened at the grassroots level, not in government offices. Educational transformation was equally profound. Students developed pride in their local culture and history. Instead of dreaming about escape, they dreamed about contribution. Brain drain slowed as opportunities appeared locally. The curriculum included traditional knowledge alongside modern subjects. Children learned that they are the inheritors of a rich intellectual tradition, not victims of a historical accident. The economic mindset shifted fundamentally. Entrepreneurs started looking for local solutions to local problems instead of importing foreign models. Investment priorities changed from foreign partnerships to local capabilities development. New business models emerged based on local value creation and community ownership. Institutional transformation followed the change in consciousness. Government ministries refocused from aid coordination to production support. Budget allocation shifted from prestige projects to productive infrastructure. The decision-making process prioritized long-term sustainability over short-term foreign approval. Public servants began seeing themselves as development catalysts rather than aid administrators. Beyond Burkina Faso's borders, the ideas began to resonate. Leaders from other African countries quietly studied the model. Youth movements across the continent adopted similar philosophies. Regional cooperation discussions shifted from mutual weakness to mutual strength. Pan-African consciousness experienced a revival with practical applications. Global attention increased rapidly. International development organizations were forced to reconsider fundamental assumptions. Academic institutions launched studies on the phenomenon. Media coverage evolved from skeptical to curious to admiring. Global South countries recognized an alternative development path. Most importantly, an intellectual revolution emerged. A new development theory based on endogenous capabilities challenged neo-colonial assumptions about African potential. Burkina Faso became a proof of concept for self-reliant development. Traditional knowledge systems gained respect in academic circles. African voices began controlling their own narratives. Numbers and policies only tell part of the story. The real transformation happened at the level of individual human beings. How they think about themselves, how they relate to the world, how they envision the future. Individual success stories multiplied rapidly. Farmers innovated traditional techniques with modern knowledge. Artisans developed high-quality products for both local and export markets. Young entrepreneurs created businesses solving local problems with local resources. Women's cooperatives became economic powerhouses. Traditional healers collaborated with modern healthcare providers. Societal transformation followed individual changes. The economic ecosystem evolved with production networks linking local businesses. Innovation clusters emerged organically around solution-focused groups. Financial circulation improved as money stayed local longer. A value creation focus replaced a resource extraction mentality. Social structures strengthened significantly. Community organizations became more effective. Intergenerational knowledge transfer accelerated with elders sharing wisdom and youth contributing energy. Gender dynamics evolved with women taking leadership roles in economic activities. Youth engagement increased as they saw a future at home rather than abroad. A cultural renaissance accelerated momentum. Local languages gained prestige and practical applications. Traditional knowledge systems received validation and modernization. Artistic expression flourished with new songs, stories, and art celebrating self-reliance. Spiritual renewal connected cultural identity with economic success. National-level transformation became undeniable. Food security improved dramatically, from import dependence to export capability. Employment grew in productive sectors rather than service activities. The trade balance shifted with reduced imports and increased value-added exports. Financial independence increased with less reliance on foreign aid. Social indicators reflected deeper changes. Educational outcomes improved with relevant skills training and cultural pride development. Health metrics advanced with better nutrition and integrated healthcare approaches. Social cohesion strengthened with a shared national purpose. Migration patterns reversed with youth staying and diaspora members returning. International standing evolved significantly. A regional leadership role emerged as other countries studied the Burkina Faso model. Global recognition grew for a successful self-reliant development approach. Partnership negotiations occurred from a position of strength rather than weakness. Soft power increased with cultural and intellectual influence expansion. Most importantly, an intangible transformation occurred. National confidence built through a collective belief in their capabilities. A future orientation emerged with generational planning rather than a focus on daily survival. Creative energy flowed with innovation and experimentation at all levels. Moral authority grew through the principles of dignity and self-determination. A true revolution is never contained within borders. Ideas have a tendency to spread, especially when those ideas are backed up by concrete results. The Burkina Faso revolution is creating ripples across the world. A continental awakening is happening. African leaders across the continent are questioning dependency models. Youth movements are adopting self-reliance philosophies. Economic integration discussions are focusing on African countries trading more with each other. Cultural pride is experiencing a renewal with an appreciation for African knowledge systems. Global South inspiration is spreading rapidly. The development alternative proves that self-reliant development is possible. South-South cooperation is emerging based on mutual respect. Knowledge sharing prioritizes traditional solutions. Political models offer alternatives to Western-imposed governance structures. An academic revolution accompanies the practical changes. Development theory is evolving with frameworks based on endogenous capabilities. Research priorities are shifting toward local knowledge and solutions. Educational curricula are including African success stories. Publishing platforms are amplifying African perspectives globally. Media transformation follows the change in consciousness. The narrative shifts from Africa as a problem to Africa as a source of solutions. Documentary filmmakers are documenting the transformation processes. Social media enables African voices to control their own stories. Cultural products celebrate self-reliance themes. Future possibilities are expanding exponentially. Children growing up in Burkina Faso today will have a completely different worldview from their parents. Their educational foundation teaches them they are creators, not just consumers. Skill development focuses on practical abilities to solve local problems. Cultural grounding provides strong identity foundations. A global perspective enables confident engagement with the world as equals. Institutional sustainability mechanisms are developing. Policy frameworks are designed to maintain a self-reliance orientation. Economic structures include built-in protections against redependency. Cultural preservation systems maintain revolutionary values. The leadership pipeline ensures a new generation's commitment to the chosen path. Regional integration is accelerating around principles of equality. Economic cooperation is based on mutual strength rather than mutual need. Knowledge networks are sharing innovations and best practices across borders. Cultural exchange celebrates diversity while building unity. Political coordination is developing common international positions. Global transformation potential is becoming visible. The development paradigm is shifting toward the recognition of endogenous capabilities. International relations are evolving toward more equitable power structures. Economic systems are moving toward mutual benefit rather than exploitation models. A cultural renaissance is promoting respect for all civilizations and knowledge systems. Universal principles are emerging from the Burkina Faso experience. The power of belief demonstrates that transformation begins in the mind. When people believe in their capabilities, those capabilities expand. This applies to individuals, communities, and nations equally. The importance of self-reliance is becoming clear. True strength develops from one's own capabilities rather than others' generosity. This doesn't mean isolation, but engagement from a position of strength. The value of a cultural foundation proves that innovation builds best on traditional wisdom rather than by abandoning it. The necessity of revolutionary courage is becoming evident. Change requires the courage to challenge existing systems, to try new approaches, to believe in dismissed possibilities. The potential for a personal revolution emerges. What transformation is possible in your life, your community? Individual-level questions arise. What dependencies can you eliminate? What capabilities can you develop? How can you contribute rather than just consume? Community-level considerations. What local problems could local resources solve? What traditional knowledge needs revaluation? How can community members support each other's growth? National-level reflection. What false limitations has your country accepted? What resources get exported raw instead of processed locally? How can citizens take more responsibility for development? A revolutionary mindset requires a clear vision of possibilities, a commitment to practical action, a belief in people's capabilities, a willingness to challenge assumptions, and persistence despite skepticism. Ibrahim Traoré demonstrated that transformation is possible. The question remains, Who will be next? Revolution waits for those ready to embrace it. Burkina Faso proved that change is possible. The question is not whether transformation can happen. The question is, are you ready to create your own?